I'm here. I hope you can see me. I might just adjust this just a weeny bit. Okay, so I'm hoping I'm live. As always, I'm just going to check over on my iPad and make sure that you're seeing what I'm planning on you seeing. I did one of these the other week for my team, and they got a view of the garden rather than me. So let's see what I'm doing. Okay, just refresh my page. Is anything happening? Oh yeah, I can see something. Right, let me just check there. It looks like I've got some people watching too, which is lovely. I'll turn the volume down on this. Yeah, I can see something. Right, let me just check there. Okay, am I upside down for you? That's the question. Or am I the right way around? Turn the volume down on this. Let's have a look. Okay, am I upside down for you? That's the question. Okay, I'm hoping I'm the right way up. Lorraine's there, I can see. Hello Lorraine, lovely to have you with us. Okay, I'm just trying to get this to play. No, it doesn't want to play today. All right, I will see how I can manage with that. I'm charging it, which means that it doesn't really want to be up the way I want it to be, but let's see if that works. Who else is here? Candy's here and Rosie's here. Hello and welcome. So nice to have you. Do you know, if I look out my window, which is just there, it is grey, it is dark, almost all the leaves are gone off the trees. It's really November-y out there today, really horrible. My son got rained off work, although he's now gone out with the dog, so he doesn't mind walking in the rain. She doesn't usually want to, but she's gone with him today. So it's quiet and peaceful in my house. I'm hoping nothing's going to interrupt us. Let's have a look and see what's going on. Anybody else there? Somebody else I think is there, but I can't see who it is. So you're welcome. Am I a bit getting the bottom of my chin there? I don't know if that's any better or not. Let's see. It's always so tricky, the first bit where I'm actually looking and talking to you and looking at you, because I can't see, other than on my iPad, what I'm seeing. I'm looking at like the back of my camera. Otherwise I can't turn it so that you can see the face down bit. So yeah, it's tricky, but we'll manage, won't we? We'll manage. Okay, so I'd love to know how you're all doing. I'd like to know what's happened this week. Probably not very much because we're all still locked down, but tell me if you've done anything. Tell me if you've been out, if you've ventured out to the shops or clicked and collected. Tell me what you've been crafting. I'd love to know what you've been crafting. I've been working on a Fancy Folds class this week, which is going to be posted out next week. And I've been working on my monthly card class by post. So if you haven't already booked for those, you've got until 5 o'clock on Monday to book for those. So just let me know. Send me an email, handmadeathome@hotmail.co.uk. Forgot my email address for a minute. Send me an email if you'd like to book for the class. Pop a comment below, although sometimes the comments disappear. When I go to look at them afterwards, I can't always see all of them. So an email is safest. handmadeathome, all one word, and then @ hotmail.co.uk. All right, let me just see if anybody's typed anything else. Let's see. Oh, okay, lots of offers to put people on camera, which I'm not going to do. Okay, let's just try and arrange all this. Okay, so yes, tell me if you've done anything exciting. I'd love to know that. I haven't done anything exciting this week at all, I don't think, although I do love preparing for classes, so that's been nice. I'm just trying to think if there's been anything else. No, absolutely nothing. That's lockdown for you. Okay, so what's happening in the world of Stampin' Up? Well, they've just announced something which is very exciting, which is they're calling it an online extravaganza, I guess because everything's online these days, which is a 24-hour sale. It starts at 11 o'clock PM in the UK on Monday night, and it goes through until 10 to 11 PM on Tuesday, so that's next week. So really you're looking at Tuesday the 24th, unless you're more of a night owl than I am. There are an awful lot of things from the annual catalogue which are 10% off. It's such a long list that actually they've given us a list of the things that are not in the sale, and I emailed round today to all my regular people an email including that list of things that's not included, so you can tell that everything else is. Coloured cards included, ink pads and refills are included, the normal kind of classic stamping pads all except for pumpkin pie. I guess they think those are selling well at the moment anyway. Lots and lots and lots and lots of things are included in that list. So if you haven't got it, if you're not on my mailing list and you'd like to be, let me know. And I will send out the exclusions list to you. I am putting in an order first thing on Tuesday morning, so if you'd like me to order anything for you, then let me know by then, because I will be putting it in early on Tuesday morning. Quite a few people have done that already, which is great. Nice to get a little bit of a saving, especially this time of year. And of course you can order yourself online. You can go to my online shop. My website is sallybowman.stampinup.net, and then if you just click on shop now, and then you can order whatever you like. It'll be delivered to you at home. You'll get your 10% discount on all the relevant items, and it will just come to you. So that's pretty good. Let me check over messages again. Okay. So I can see we've got some more people watching, which is lovely, but I can't see who it is. So I'm just going to carry on regardless. Okay, so I've told you what's happening in the world of Stampin' Up. I need to remember to say, please, if you can like or love this and share it, that really, really helps me. It helps me be seen by other people that might enjoy some crafting on a Friday afternoon, and that would be brilliant. So every time you come and watch this, if you can like and share it, I really would be ever so grateful. Thank you. Right, I'm going to cover the camera now, move it hands down, and talk to you a little bit about today's subject, which is watercolour pencils and line images. So as always, the screen is going to go blank. I'm not sure what colour we are today. I think we're blue today. The screen's going to go blue. I'll fiddle around. I'll try and remember to keep talking to you, and then hopefully when I take the post-it off the screen, you won't be feeling seasick and you'll be able to see my desk. Bear with me. Should have had a post-it note ready. I had to lean across to get one there. There we go. This is always interesting. I have to bend my phone stand round. Oh, I can see that Mary has joined. Hello, Mary. Ruth says, Ruth must be here. So Rosie's saying it's good to see you, Ruth, which is really nice. Always nice to see a friend. Okay, so now I have to press the right buttons. I got a frame up on the screen the last time I did a live, which I didn't want. And because I didn't know how it had got there, I couldn't actually get rid of it. So life is always an adventure. The technology is not something I've been using for very long. As most of you know, I had an entirely face-to-face business until COVID struck. So now I'm having to learn all kinds of new things. Right, so I'm really hoping that I've hit all the buttons I needed to, and that you will be able to see my desk. Now let me just fiddle and try and get the paper in the right place and so on. Okay, it looks like I'm up the right way, which is a miracle in itself. Not very straight. I might have to fiddle with the camera just to straighten that so you don't have to look at a wonky grid all afternoon. Let's see. This is the boring bit, isn't it? I've just got to wait for my iPad to catch up, because if I look into my phone screen, everything is upside down and round the wrong way. And I'm not one of those people that's very good at adjusting things in their heads. When I navigate in the car, I have to turn the map round, because I can't do it otherwise. So I can't work out when I'm looking at something that's upside down and back to front which way I need to turn it to improve it. There we go. I think I'm there now. Okay, good. Right, I think we'll quit while we're ahead. I've still got some shadowing on here. I have got a new light. Let me see if I can adjust that slightly. That might be better, because I've had to have the lights on in my craft room because it's so dark outside, and I'm guessing that's what it's going to be like from now on this time of the year. But I did get an extra light for filming, so I'm hoping that I can fiddle with that just a little bit and get the light in the right place and get rid of the shadows. I think that's better anyway. All right, so watercolour pencils then. Some of you may know about these, some of you may not. I've got two sets of watercolour pencils here. This is the first set we got, and then Stampin' Up brought out a second one. So this one has 13 colours in it. This is just called watercolour pencils. And this one is set 2, and this has another 10 in it. So altogether I've got 23 colours to play with. They're all matched with Stampin' Up colours, so you can match this to your card, to your ribbon, to your ink pads, and everything will be coordinated in the usual way. They're really nice quality pencils. They're wood all the way through. The leads are really soft, which means you can blend them nicely. They sharpen well. You want to use a good quality metal pencil sharpener, but then they'll sharpen beautifully. Some people like really pointy pencils, some people like them quite worn down, so that means that you can have them whichever way you like. They come in a cardboard box which stores them absolutely fine, but for ease in use I've actually got mine in these stamp cases, which are in the catalogue if you like them for storage. I really do like them for storage very much. So watercolour pencils, then you can just colour with them in the normal sort of way. Let me show you that. Get a card out. So with or without an image to colour in, they just work like ordinary pencils. And I'm colouring with quite a light touch here. If I colour with a bit more firm pressure, you can see I'm laying down a lot more pigment. I can go over the top with another colour and blend those. So you can see that you can see how much pigment is coming off. It hasn't actually even all been pressed into the paper there. And then you can activate this with water, but if you just want really good quality colouring pencils, then you can see that you can use them just to colour with. If you want to actually activate the watercolour properties, then first of all I suggest, if you possibly can, that you change the paper you're working on. This is ordinary Whisper White card, which is fantastic for stamping on. It's beautifully smooth for colouring on. However, if I'm going to activate these with water, it's not designed to take a lot of water. You can use it, and I'll show you a sample a bit later of one that I used water on, and as long as you're fairly sparing, the paper will dry out and it will be fine. But ideally you want to use one of two things. This is shimmery white card. I don't know if you'll be able to see that there is a shimmer to it. So this has a surface on it, a surface coating, which means that all the water doesn't immediately get absorbed by the card, and so you can use much more water on this without damaging the surface. And the other thing that is actually my favourite for using is watercolour paper. So again, this is in the catalogue, and it's got a kind of a medium texture to the surface. So it's smooth enough that you can stamp on it without your outline skipping, but it does have some texture which gives you that lovely watercolour look and feel to what you're doing, and that is absolutely fabulous to work on. And you'll see in a minute how beautifully the water and the colour moves and makes you feel very artistic. Now I can see Mary is watching. Mary paints beautifully. I don't. I mean, I do mixed media work, but I am definitely not a fine artist. Mary paints beautifully, so she's an absolute expert in watercolour. So she would know all about watercolour paper. So I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know already, Mary. But for those of us that aren't as accomplished as that, this watercolour paper is absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to do the same thing on both surfaces so you'll be able to see the difference. So this is the shimmery white. In fact, I could write that on there, couldn't I? That might be helpful. And find a pen. That's shimmery white. And this is watercolour paper. There we go. So now you can see which surface is doing which thing. So all the different things you can use. Well, I've already shown you just laying down some colour, so let's do that for a start. For a start, on the different papers, you can see that there is completely different, at least I hope you can see different texture there. This is the watercolour paper, and you can see instantly you've got much more texture than you have on the smooth card. And ways of diluting this, one of my favourite ways, this is great if you don't want to make a lot of mess, it's fantastic to do with children, or just if you don't feel very confident with a paintbrush, is to use a blender pen. So these blender pens, again, are in the catalogue. They come in a 3-pack. I can give you some catalogue page numbers in a minute just so you can go back and watch the video and find things easily. But if I then just go over this, the fluid that's in this pen will activate the colour. So it's given it a much more paint look to it, and I can actually spread that colour out quite a long way. And to clean this, I'm just going to scribble on a scrap of paper or card just until there's no more colour coming off the tip of the pen, and then I know it's clean and it's not going to transfer any colour to my next section, which could be, let's say, yellow. I wouldn't want pink in that necessarily. So the pens are double-ended, but there is nothing magic about one end or the other. It's just so you pick it up and it doesn't matter which end you take off. So these are blender pens. They're absolutely fabulous. They're acid-free, so they're safe to use in your scrapbooking or anything that you want to keep forever. And they activate the colour beautifully. They work on the watercolour paper as well. They're not refillable, but you do get 3 in a pack, so a pack will last you a very long time. I've been using Stampin' Up products for 9 years now, and my first pack of 3, that includes being used at classes and so on, lasted me 6 years. So that's quite a lot. They last for ages. They're absolutely fantastic. So that's blender pens then with the watercolour pencil. So let's try something a bit more conventional, if you like, which is a water painter. Now you could use just an ordinary paintbrush and a jam jar of water. That will work perfectly. These water painters, these are new in the current annual catalogue. We had aqua painters before, which were lovely, nice quality, really beautiful. These offer you slightly different options in the brush tips, different sizes. I'll show you those. They're longer, so the reservoir is larger, so that keeps you going for longer without you having to add more water to the reservoir. And they also work out cheaper, so win-win as far as I'm concerned. So they come in a pack of 3. So you've got a very fine tip, you've got a wider tip, and then you've got one which you would use for either colouring very large areas or doing a wash with. I'm hoping those are showing up. Let me put them on this post-it just so you can see them against a coloured background, because white on white isn't always the best to see. There we go. So that's those 3. When you buy them, they're empty. They unscrew. So if I can do this without spilling water everywhere. So the barrel comes apart from the brush tip. You just fill that from the tap and then you screw it up again. They work, it may just be me, but you seem to unscrew and screw up the opposite way to how I would expect. So it always throws me a bit to start with. And then on the barrel it's written push. So you just squeeze the barrel there where it says push and water will flow out of the tip. And so you can then go ahead and paint your surface. So let me move my post-it and bring back my card and let's do a little bit of that. What colour shall we use? Let's use orange. So there's some orange on the shimmery white and here's some on the watercolour paper. So I've got the medium tip here. I already squeezed this last time I used it, so it's nice and moist. And I just colour away, so you can see that that pencil is turning into paint before my eyes, and I can spread it out so it's really pale and delicate. And on the watercolour paper, exactly the same. You'll probably find you need to squeeze the barrel a little bit and get a little more water here, because this watercolour paper takes lots of water, and all that pigment from the pencil has just dissolved in the water, and you can just get the most gorgeous watercolour effect. It makes me feel really clever when I do that. And again, to clean these, it's super easy. You just brush the tip on a scrap of paper. I've got some kitchen roll here. Squeeze the barrel a little bit to flush some water through, and then once there's no more pigment coming out, I'm ready to change colour. So I've got no jar of water to risk knocking over on my desk. I'm sure I'm not the only person that has knocked something like that over. It's only too easy to. So there's nothing like that to do with this. They're fantastic to use with children as well, for the same reason. You've got no water to worry about in an open container, because the water is completely sealed in the barrel. They're brilliant for travelling, or if you like to paint and you like to go out and about and do that, absolutely fantastic. I really love these. I'll be using this wide wash brush a little bit later on one of the things I'm going to create for you. And of course this really fine brush, this fine tip, is great for really detailed images. So another way that you can use them is to spritz the colour. So let's bring in a different colour again, just for a change. We haven't got green. Let's use Granny Apple Green. I love this green. So that's the watercolour paper there. Let's do some on the shimmery white. Now spritzing this is a little bit messy, so I'm going to put it on some kitchen towel, and I'm going to add another colour just so you can really see this working. It has much more unpredictable results, and if you know me at all, you'll know that that's the kind of thing I really love. I love it if I'm not certain what result I'm going to get. So let me just put down a bit of kitchen paper here. And I'm going to bring in a stamping spritzer. These, I think, are the bargain of the catalogue. They're a 2-pack and they're only £2.75. And you can fill the barrel with water from the tap, or you can fill it with rubbing alcohol. There's a lot of inky techniques that use rubbing alcohol. You can put some shimmer paint in there with some rubbing alcohol and give it a good shake, and then you've got a shimmer spray. So they're brilliant for all sorts of things. And once again, you just unscrew the top, fill that from the tap, screw it back up again, take the cap off, and then you can spray through there. So this is my shimmery white, so I'm just going to spritz this over the top of that pencil. So you can instantly see that that colour is dissolving. You can tip and tilt and drip. It's really fun. If you want to, you can bring a brush in. The extra water isn't going to hurt this brush because there's already water in it. And you can just kind of steer that watercolour around. If you're wanting to do a large area as well, then that's a really good option, because you can spritz it and then you can just move colour as you need it. It moves even better on the watercolour paper. On the shimmery white, I've still got those pencil marks, which if I'm doing something like a background or a wash, I might not want. But if I spritz my watercolour paper, because this is absolutely designed for this, you can see that a lot more of the pigment dissolves. Once again, if I want, I can help it along a little bit, so that the friction of the brush is just picking up all that pencil pigment and dissolving it. So the colours have mixed, so I've got a different green, a green that I don't have a pencil for. And you can see that, you know, if you want drips and smudges, you can, or you can just spread that colour right out. And if that's spreading too much, you can just dab lots of it off, or I can dab it all over and get a paler effect here, where there was no pencil. It's just the ink, the wash that's spread out. You can hardly see it. And actually these, when they dry, your bits of coloured kitchen paper, make fabulous additions to your cards as well, so don't throw those away. So that's 3 ways of using them, and we haven't even started stamping yet. Now you can do all of those with a stamped image, so instead of just colouring on plain paper, you can actually have a stamped image and go ahead and colour that in, and then move the colour, spread the colour, blend the colour with a blender pen, or with a water painter, or with a stamping spritzer. I can see Georgia's joined us. Hello Georgia. Georgia is my niece. How lovely to have you here. You're very welcome. Thank you. I'm just going to have a slurp of my tea. I can feel my throat drying. Okay, so I'm now going to come on to something that's a little bit more technique-y, I suppose, which you may or may not know you can do. So I've got a stamp here. This is a flower stamp. It's from the 4-season floral set, and I can actually colour directly on my stamp with watercolour pencils. The first thing I need to do is to actually moisten the stamp, because if I just go to colour on this, nothing's really happening. There's no tooth at all on the stamp to actually grab the colour. But if I spritz this just a couple of times quite lightly, my stamp is now wet, so as I take the pencil to it, you can see, I imagine, that colour coming off. Let's pick another one. Let's find a green. There we go. So the pigment from the pencil is dissolving in the water on the stamp, and once I've coloured the whole stamp, I can then stamp with it, and it will give you the look of the line art, but with the watercolour effect as well. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. This is again slightly unpredictable. You never know quite how much the pigment will dissolve and spread. You can't always gauge exactly how much pigment you've got on your stamp. And then because that's been drying while I've been working, particularly with this light on it, I'm just going to spritz it a little bit more. I don't want to get it too wet, but just a couple more little spritzes, and let's stamp that. I'll stamp it on the watercolour paper because that always just takes the colour so beautifully. I'm going to hold it just for a moment longer than I normally would. There you can see that is my watercoloured, multicoloured flower, and I could even, if I wanted, spritz that a bit more just to encourage that pigment to bleed a little bit. And as it just sits, you can just see the pigment starting to move. I do really like this one. You've got a little bit more control over where the colours go. And then finally, before I actually get started on a project, I will just show that you can use the pencils on a scrap of card and make yourself a palette for painting with. So this is slightly damp, but it will work. So if I put down a couple of colours, and I'm going to try to lay down plenty of the pigment in the pencil here. Then with my water painter, I can just make sure there's some water in the tip. Yes, there is. I can then pick that up as if that was a paint palette, and I can then paint either freehand, or if I've got a stamped image, I can use that too. So that's another way of working with the pencils. So instead of actually colouring in your line image that you've stamped, you can actually just make yourself a little palette and go straight in with a brush rather than colouring with the pencils first. You can get a similar effect by taking colour off the tip of the brush, but I don't really recommend this because if you're not careful, the wood can get saturated and then that weakens the pencil. It does work, it works absolutely fine. But personally, I think making yourself a little palette on a scrap of card is the best way to go. So there we are. That's told you lots and lots and lots about the watercolour pencils. So I'm going to make a little bit of space. I'm just going to signpost you to where everything is in the catalogue in case you want to have a look for them. And then we'll do a little bit of stamping. Okay, so where am I? Page. This is the annual catalogue, the fat catalogue. If you haven't got one and you don't have a demonstrator but you'd like one, let me know. So I'm on page 144, and down here is where you'll find the watercolour pencils. And the larger set is £15, which I think is very affordable, and actually wouldn't that make a lovely Christmas present for somebody? Maybe some watercolour pencils, pack of watercolour paper. You might be able to throw in an ink pad. I'm going to talk about ink pads in a minute, and possibly a stamp set. That would just be so nice to receive, and there's so many things you can do with that. I've turned over to page 146 to show you that this is where you will find the water painters, and on page 147, the pictures on 146. There we go. And the ink pad that I would recommend you use. So StazOn is a permanent ink pad, which means that when you add water to it, it's not going to run. You do need StazOn remover to get it off your stamps, StazOn cleaner, because our ordinary cleaning things will not get the ink off, but this ink will not budge when you stamp with it, so you can throw as much water on top as you like and that black outline is going to stay absolutely still. We also have a brown one, saddle brown, here as well, so if you prefer brown, then there's a brown. If you don't want a permanent ink pad, maybe you're working with children and permanent black ink sounds like a really bad idea, then Memento, which is on the same page, this is a really good one. This is resistant to water, so it's not waterproof, but it will resist water, and as long as you don't go crazy scrubbing at it with water, you'll usually find that that will not move. And another colour that I like to use is basic grey. This is a water-based ink, so it does wash out of clothes and so on. But actually, if you're stamping with it, as long as, again, as you don't get it really wet and then scrub at the surface, usually you will find that this won't move either. So that's another possibility. Some people have got this in their stash already. Okay, so the stamping spritzers are on this page as well. And they're over here somewhere, if I can find them. Down here. On page 153, you've got the shimmery white card at the top, and you've got the watercolour paper next to it there as well. And I just marked page 163. That's where you'll find your Stays On cleaner to get it off your stamps. If you're using photopolymer stamps, so these clear stamps, they don't recommend that you use Stays On ink on them, and if you must use Stays On ink, and I must admit occasionally I do, they definitely don't recommend that you use the Stays On cleaner, because the cleaner does not do this photopolymer any good at all, and it will degrade. So you will just have to leave them with the black outline on there. Once the ink has dried on this stamp, or even on a rubber stamp, it's not going to come off on anything else, so it won't hurt anything to keep it on there. But if you can possibly use red rubber stamps with Stays On ink, whether it's the brown or the black, that will be much better. And I didn't show you the blender pens. Where were they? They were on page 147. And they are here somewhere. There we go, down at the bottom. So that's all of those. If you can't find something, you can always drop me a message and I can point you in the right direction of it. Right, I'm just going to clean this flowery stamp just so when I put it down it doesn't transfer all that colour somewhere else. And then let's get started with our project. So this is probably the easiest kind of project you can make using watercolour pencils. So I've used an image from a stamp set that I've only just got, which is Beautiful Moments. I actually got this free. One of the wonderful things about being a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator is there are lots of opportunities to get free stuff, and I got this free. I just think the images are so beautiful, and when I talk about a line image, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, something like you might find in a colouring book. So you've got your outlines, but the parts in the middle have not been coloured in. Marjorie's here. Hello Marjorie, you are very welcome. Everybody's really quiet today, unless you're all typing in madly and I just can't see the comments. That's always a possibility. This is the Four Seasons Floral. That's the image I used to show you how to actually use watercolour pencils directly on your stamp. But you can see this is a great set. This actually works the whole year. You've even got Christmas one on here. And you can colour these in beautifully with the pencils. Here's something that's a little bit more masculine, but again you've got plenty of line art images that look great coloured in. I'll show you a finished card with that a little bit later. Here's another favourite one of mine. I just love these birds, and you can make all kinds of birds by the way you colour them. So you can make, you know, blue tits and great tits and green finches and chaffinches and bullfinches, all sorts of birds. So lovely, lovely sets. But I'm going to be working with this one. And so to get this watercolour effect, all I do literally is I stamp the image I want, and then I go over the lines of the image with colour, and then I spritz it with water. So I'm going to do one and just show you how easy that is. So I'm using watercolour paper because that really is my favourite to work on, but you could do it on shimmery white. I just find that the colour dissolves better and spreads better on watercolour paper. So I'm going to bring in my permanent Stays On ink pad, and I've got my stamp mounted already. The ink pad is a felt ink pad, so it's very firm, so you have to use a lot more pressure to ink up your stamp than you would if it was a sponge ink pad. There we go. The smell of the ink is almonds. I absolutely love it. I'm not encouraging you to sniff ink because that really wouldn't be good, but it is lovely. So I'll stamp my image, the lady in the lavender. And then I'm going to bring in my coloured pencils. So what should we have? My sample, she's got blonde hair, so let's have a dark haired lady. So I'm literally just going to go over those lines. So the artist who created the stamp has done all the hard work for me. So I don't have to do anything clever. I don't even have to colour inside the lines. I'm literally just colouring on the lines of the hair. So I'm hoping you can see that. Her dress will be easier because it's a larger area. I'm just going to have a quick slurp of tea. Anybody else drinking tea this afternoon? Okay, so let's give this lady a yellow dress. No, let's give her a coral dress. That will show better, I think. So for her dress, again, I'm just going over the lines of the drawing. When you add the water, you get this kind of almost ethereal effect of watercolouring. It's just, I just love it. It's like magic watching it happen, and you'll be able to share the magic in a minute. All right, so I'm using both sets here. So this was a Calypso Coral from set 1, and the brown was from set 1 as well. I'm now using Flirty Flamingo from set, I think that's set 2, I believe. Yes, it is. For skin, I quite like to use Flirty Flamingo with a little bit of another colour on top. So maybe this is obviously for Caucasian skin. I quite like Crushed Curry, that's in set 2, or you can use Daffodil in set 1, so a yellow or a yellowy brown, and that just seems to blend with the sort of the pinkish flamingo colour to give you a slightly more realistic skin tone. And now I just need to do the lavenders, and I am going to use the same. This is Gorgeous Grape, this is from set 2. So you can see I'm actually colouring this in really quite inexactly. Going round those lines, some of them are really just marks, so I'm just making sure that I lay down plenty of the purple pigment in the pencil. And if it doesn't look beautiful at this stage, it really doesn't matter, because it's going to look wonderful once you add the water to it. And then this is Old Olive, I think. Is it Old Olive? No, I've picked up Old Olive. Oh, well, that's the one I wanted. Old Olive is in set 1. And you can't really see the stems and the leaves until I activate it with the water, because I'm just colouring over that pencil line. And you can see I'm working quickly. You know, you don't have to be exact and precise with this. I haven't stamped the butterflies. I am going to add some butterflies because I do like them. These are the teeniest little stamps. There are 2 different butterflies. So this one, which is sort of a more or less face-on butterfly, where you can stamp coming from right or left. This one is a sort of a sideways view of a butterfly, so he needs to go on the left of whatever you're working on. Alright, and what colour should I make my butterflies? Let's make them pink. So this is Melon Mambo from set 1. There's only a tiny bit on the butterflies you can colour. Because they're so tiny, I'm actually colouring in their wings rather than just working on the lines for that, because I don't think I shall have enough colour down otherwise. So there we are. And now I'm going to pop this on some paper and just spritz it with water and watch the magic happen. So I'm putting quite a lot of water on here, about 6 or 7 spritzes, I would think. and then I'm just going to watch it and see what that pigment does. I may need to add more water, I may need to dab some off, but I'm hoping that you can see that that pigment is starting to dissolve and spread and give me this beautiful kind of halo effect. It's filled in all the the areas surrounded by the outlines, so I've got very pale colour in those spaces. I'm just finding some more paper here, and if it starts to pool a bit more than you want, like there, just dab it. Dabbing it gives you a kind of a soft edge. So there we are. So I absolutely love that. When that's dry, then you end up with something like this. So you can see, I think, some traces of where I coloured on the lines, but her dress is coloured in pale pink, her hair is all yellow, the grassy area is green between the stems as well, and then you get this lovely kind of haloing where the colour has spread out and gives you a really soft look. And once it's dry, I can then stamp some words down the bottom. So there you go then. That is the simplest way of all to use the watercolour pencils with a stamp. Stamp your image in Stays On ink. I've got it on watercolour paper because that's my favourite, but you could use shimmery white. Draw over the lines of your image using whichever colours you like, and then just spritz it with water. Blot up any excess if it's just spreading a bit too much, and then let it dry and finish your card off. So that's that one. I'm going to set that aside. I can finish that later on. And then let me bring in another one. Now I've done on this next one, there's a little bit of, here's one I prepared earlier, because I wanted to do a watercolour wash on it, and that takes a while to dry, so I wouldn't have been able to complete the card. So I'm just going to show you how I did the wash, and then I'll bring in one I did earlier, which is dry. So again, I've got some watercolour paper here, and I'm going to do a beach scene. So I'm going to do some yellow sand. I'm using my grid paper actually to help me have more or less straight lines. So I've got a line at the top and I've got a line at the bottom. I'm hoping, let me move it up a little bit, and then hopefully you can see the top and the bottom. There, so I've approximately done that. You could use a ruler. I don't want it exactly perfect, but it does help if it's fairly straight. So I'm going to lay down some nice yellow sand all the way across that. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit of crushed curry to that, just so it's not exact. Again, you don't have to be perfect with this. I mean, you know, anybody could do that, couldn't they? It's not perfect at all. I'm going to add some sea in. I'm going to have sea and sky yet. So again, I'm just going to roughly use my grid paper to get that fairly straight. So this is Balmy Blue, which is a nice mid blue, not too dark. Oops, can't hold it still. Let's try again. There we go. I'm going to put a horizon line in just to make it easier to add in the sky. And I've got a Night of Navy pencil here, so I'm just going to add a fairly thin darker blue line there, just to make sure I've got some sort of delineation between the sea and the sky. And then I'm going to bring in Pacific Point, which is a brighter blue for the sky. And then when it comes to activating this, I could use any of the methods I've shown you. I'm going to use that really wide water painter brush that I showed you earlier, just so you can see how beautifully that works for something like this. I'm going to pop it on a bit of paper again, just to stop my desk getting too soggy. And then this is the brush. You can see how wide it is. It's about 1/2 inch wide. So I want plenty of water with this, so I'm going to squeeze the barrel, make sure the water is coming down into the brush, and then I'm just going to move across this in fairly smooth strokes. And I hope you can see that colour dissolving really nicely under the brush. And all I'm doing is just going to and fro. And then I should go over the horizon line. I don't want to blend that horizon line too much. I do want that to stay slightly darker. So I'm blending it, but I don't want it to disappear. I'm going to clean off my brush and then come into the bit that's the sea, because that's a paler blue. There we go. So that is my sea and sky, and then I'm just cleaning off the brush one last time, and then I should do the sand. And those two colours I used on the sand blend together just to really give it a little bit of texture. I've gone over my sea there. I don't really want the sea to go green, so I can just dab that a bit, and then I can come back in and blend over that little white gap I've made. There we are. So that is my background then for my stamping. Sea and sky and sand. Gosh, I'd like to be there now, wouldn't you? All right, so I'm going to bring in one that I've done that has dried. I'm just going to have some of my tea, which you obviously can't see, but that was very nice. All right, let's move that out of the way to dry. And here's one I prepared earlier. Okay, if you're of my era, that will be a very familiar phrase for you. All right, something else I did earlier was I stamped some more images from that set. So I've stamped the mum and daughter, or the older sister and younger sister, and then these two little cuties here as well with their buckets and spades. I stamped them on watercolour paper, coloured them, painted them with a water painter to activate the colour, and then cut them out. So I'm going to use those on this, and then I've got another one here, so I thought I would just colour this a little bit fairly quickly just to show you. So this is stamped in Stays on ink on watercolour paper and cut out. So I'm colouring this just as if it was a colouring book, and these were ordinary coloured pencils. And of course, if you've got children or nieces and nephews or grandchildren with this particular set, you can actually make up different family groups with it. We've got another set with the same kind of style in the catalogue that's also got men in it. This one is just a mum or an older girl and children, but you can combine it with that one with the men as well, and the name of it escapes me, but it's in there. And make up, you know, whole family groups. It's really, really sweet. So there's a little girl in a pink dress. Let's put this one in an orange dress. Got a couple of buckets there. Let's have a red bucket. It's cherry cobbler, so it's a kind of a brownish red. Have a green bucket, and then just do their skin. You don't have to be super exact when you're colouring these in, because the pigment is going to spread in any case. I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of yellow in there. That's the bit between the two handles of the bucket, which I haven't cut out, and then when it's laid on top of the sand, hopefully that will look like you can see through the bucket handle, as you actually would be able to. Just add some brown to their arms so they're not too pink, because they've been out in the sun on the beach, of course. There we go. So that's very quickly coloured that one in. And then I will just bring in my water painter. A bit of paper towel again in case I need it. I'll try the medium end. I might switch to the fine end. And then I'm just going to spread that pencil out. And you can see, I hope, that it just turns beautifully into paint. I've just brushed the tip on my kitchen paper. It's I don't know if I can get everything in the camera. I'll try to. Every time I change colour, I just brush the tip of my brush on some scrap paper or kitchen roll, whatever you've got, just to take the pigment off it, and then I can change to a different colour and I know my colours will be coming out true. So you can see, I mean, I don't have mad brush skills here or anything like that. I'm just rubbing, really, just rubbing the colour over the top. Sorry, rubbing the water over the top of the colour is what I meant to say. And it spreads out and it looks like paint. And the more water you add, the paler your colours will be, and the more it will spread over the edges. In this case, obviously, I've cut out my design, so it's not going to actually spread that far. But if this was stamped flat on a paper with paper all the way around it, then that colour would spread out a bit like the first card I showed you. It is just, it's so easy to watercolour with these pencils. You have so much more control. If you're not, you know, already really competent with watercolour paints, you probably have plenty of control with a pencil. We've all been using pencils since we were tiny, haven't we? So colouring with a pencil is something most of us are really comfortable doing, and then you can just brush over it with no great skill level to turn it into paint. There we are. So that's that other little couple of children. I'll put them to one side and bring back the other bits and pieces. So to complete the card, I've got a Melon Mambo card base here. That's my washed piece that I did earlier. So I'm just going to glue all the layers together. I've got a piece of Night of Navy card. I don't know if I've had any more people join or any more comments. I can't see anything. I will go back and look at the comments afterwards. So if you've all been asking me questions like mad, then then I will answer them here afterwards. But I can't see any at the moment. That could just be my iPad not playing ball, so who knows. Here's my card base. Make sure I've got it the right way up. If you saw my Facebook page yesterday evening, you'll have seen a card that I did upside down. So I don't want to do that with this one. When you're sticking the watercolour paper, you may find you have to hold it down just a little longer than usual and use just a little bit more glue on it. It just seems to need that extra bit of help. And then it's just a case of arranging people wherever you want. You can obviously put them, you know, anywhere on that. That looks quite good to me. I quite like that, so I'm going to just stick them down. I could pop them up on dimensionals if I wanted. But I'm going to glue these flat. And of course you can add all kinds of embellishments to your card. You could add some ribbon. You could throw in a few rhinestones. We've got other sets that would coordinate with the beach scene beautifully. So you could add some gulls from that. You could stamp a lighthouse. There's all sorts of things that you could combine with this. So this is really a fairly simple card, but with a much more interesting background created with those watercolour pencils. So you can see these just need pressing down a little bit longer with this watercolour paper. There we are. And that is my card done. Very, very simple. I could pop a greeting up there if I wanted to. Could tie some ribbon around here or some twine. but you really, there's a lot of me in that, if you like, because every brush stroke is something that I have created. It's not all been done by a stamp with somebody else's work, so that's quite nice as well. It perhaps feels a little bit more personal than some cards might. So that's the watercolour wash then. I used watercolour paper. I coloured sections of it to suit my beach scene, and of course that could have been a grassy meadow, it could have been anything else. I activated the pencil with water, and I used this beautiful wide wash brush, this water painter. Once that had dried, I then added my figures. So I stamped them with StazOn ink on watercolour paper. I cut them out, and then I coloured them with watercolour pencils and activated the colour using one of the brush tip water painters, and then stuck them down. So that's that card. Victoria, hello. I can see you've joined us, or at least you might have been here for a long time, but I've only just got the notification you've joined us, so you're very welcome. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, so let me show you a few other samples. Now, I showed you, there we are, this card when we started crafting, and then I made one to show you how I'd done that. Now, this is the same card, but done on one of our standard note cards. So this card is thick Whisper White, and so I did exactly the same. I coloured in the image, I spritzed over it with some water in a spritzer, and then I let it dry really well. So I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but the areas that got wet, you can kind of see down here, are just very slightly bumpy. I actually don't mind that. And it's not very noticeable. You may not even be able to see it. So that's one thing that you get with Whisper White card that you don't get with the watercolour paper or with the shimmery white. And the other thing is that the colour hasn't spread anything like as much. If I show you the one on watercolour paper, I hope that you can see the difference. On this one, the colour has spread beyond the image and given you this beautiful kind of halo effect. On this one, it's softened the pencil strokes, but it hasn't spread in nearly the same way. So it's worked. It's a pretty card. It's one I shall be happy to send. But you don't really get that watercolour look when you just use it straight on Whisper White card. It's more effective if you use watercolour paper. Let me show you a few others I did. So this is the same image as before, the lady in the lavender field. If I tilt that, maybe the light will pick up that I used shimmery white card on this one instead. And there is a little lavender sprig stamp as well, which I just stamped all over to make it a whole meadow of lavender. With this one, I coloured the whole thing. I didn't just colour on the lines. And then I coloured the sky, and then I've just used one of the water painters to activate the whole lot with water. This one is done in the same way. I've coloured everything in, and I've added just some blue to the top here for the sky and some green for the bottom. But because it's on watercolour paper, it has a very different look. So if I put those two side by side, I'm hoping you can see the difference in texture. And then this one, I then die cut, which is nice. I think it gives it a nice frame there. Using a different stamp set. Here's those little birds I told you, as the set. Free as a Bird is the stamp set, which I showed you earlier. I love this set. So this one, I stamped the image again in StazOn so that it didn't, the ink didn't run. I coloured in the birds fully with pencils, and then I spritzed over the top with my spritzer with water in it. Once that had dried, I then die cut out the centre panel that I wanted. Here's another one of that lady. This time I've done it very differently on crumb cake cardstock. Again, she's stamped in StazOn ink, so that black ink is not going to move. And then I've just coloured it entirely in a white pencil, which I've then brushed over with a water painter just to distribute the colour and give this very kind of soft look. And then finally, a completely different kind of image. I've used the Geared Up Garage set and made more of a masculine card here. I've used the dies as well to cut out some cogs, but the car is coloured using the watercolour pencils, which I then activated using a blender pen. So I've got a really smooth look to that colour, much smoother than when you've just coloured it with the pencils. So I'll put those out so you can just have a better look at them. It's always a challenge getting everything in shot. Let's have a look. Let's see what I can get in shot. Just check that I've not got things all over the place. So there's a couple there. And then if I swap these around, at least you'll be able to pause. If you play the video afterwards, you can pause on it and have a good look at these. So that's two of that image. I love that. That's probably my favourite image in that particular set. Then two more there, two landscape cards. I've got a feeling the birds are going to be off the bottom. I might have to just, okay, let's move that one. Put the birds there, and then I'll show you the car. So lots of different ways of using watercolour pencils. They're very inexpensive, I think, considering how versatile they are. You only need a few bits and pieces to use with them. Most of the things I've used today are in that special offer, that 10% off online extravaganza. So that is not a bad thing to actually think about. So if you're interested in ordering anything from the annual catalogue, if you can wait to order it until Tuesday, then you'll get 10% off everything except those things which are on the exceptions list. You can see all that by going to my website, or you can just drop me an email, handmadeathome@hotmail.co.uk, or send me a message on Facebook. I will go through all the comments from this video afterwards. They don't seem to have been coming up very well at all. But that will get you all the information you need. Now I'm just going to switch you back to me so I can say goodbye properly, because it's just gone 3 o'clock. So bear with me. I'm just going to cover you over. Let's see. Hopefully I've done the trick and I won't be upside down. Sometimes I do this, and when I peer back on screen I'm upside down, which is always a novelty. So hopefully when my iPad catches up, I will be here looking at you and smiling and saying thank you very much indeed for joining me today on this horrible wet Friday. Whatever you're doing this weekend, I hope you have a lovely time. Thank you for joining me. Next week I'll be here, same time, same place, 2 o'clock on Friday. I'm going to be looking at outline images again, but this time I'm going to be looking at the blends markers with them. So I hope to give you lots and lots of colouring ideas there as well. And the blends are in the sale, so if you want to start your collection or increase your collection, order them on Tuesday. Let me have your order and I'll order for you, or do it online in my online shop and get them sent straight to you at home. So good luck with that. Have a lot of fun. Have a nice weekend, whatever you're doing, and thank you so much for joining me. Bye bye.